If you're new with us, over the last about 2 months, we've been talking about what it means to worship, not just for the hour that we have here on Sunday morning, but for worship to be a way of life, a way that we actually live every moment of every day. And so today, I want to continue that conversation with us this morning, and I want to focus in specifically on what it looks like to express worship. Now, a number of years ago, my wife and I, we went on a trip with some friends to Southeast Asia. We went to Indonesia, we went to Thailand, and we went to Malaysia. And one of the stops that we went to was this place called the Batu Caves. The Batu Caves is it's actually a temple to the Hindu god Murugan. So I've got this picture for you. You can kind of see that. That's what this gigantic gold like statue thing. That's the god Murugan these people would worship. And down below here on the left side, you'll see there's kind of this building. That's one of the temples that were there, and there were all these people sacrificing to this Hindu god Murugan in that lower temple. But up these stairs, up the middle here, there's 272 stairs to the top. Whoa, yeah. And when you get to the top, there's this huge cave, and inside the cave is another temple. And then there's another one way back there. And in all these temples, people are there to worship the Hindu god Murugan. And so I'm there as an absolute tourist. I have no idea what's going on. And so I'm just like, stairs. And so I just, book it up the stairs. And by the time I'm huffing and puffing at the top. And I've just left my whole crew down below. So I'm at the very top, and I'm watching. It's bizarre. You walk up all these stairs, and there's like monkeys all over the place. So these monkeys are like lined up, and they're watching, and they're kind of hopping back and forth. And there's all these people walking up and down the stairs. And I get to the top, and I look back down, and I'm waiting for my whole crew to come on up. And about 30 steps from the top, I see this frail, skinny, older woman, and she's got these this large stick with buckets on either end. And inside those buckets, she's filled them with coconut milk. And she's walking it up the stairs because that's going to be her offering, her sacrifice to this god Murugan. And so I'm there, and I'm looking down, and I'm like, this is just bizarre to me. And there's monkeys everywhere. And I look down, and about 30 steps from the top, this woman is there with her buckets, and a monkey jumps off, lands on her shoulders, and she goes, whoosh, and the milk goes everywhere. And I was like, and the monkeys, they jump down, and they're like, and I was like, no, monkeys, you can't do that. And she's just so defeated. She doesn't say a word, though. She just goes, she picks up the buckets and just starts her way back down the stairs. It's like, oh, gosh. So whatever. So we make it up, and we're, I'm in the cave, and I'm looking around, just kind of sightseeing and reading all the stuff that they've got all over the place. And we've been up there for about an hour and a half, and we're like, all right, it's finally time to go back down. And so we start heading back down, and there's this big, long line into one of the temples, and sure enough, waiting in that line is this woman with another bunch of milk and a little girl who's perhaps her daughter or granddaughter. And I remember just sitting there in that moment looking, and everything about this was just bizarre to me. You have to walk up all these stairs. Why are you coming up here when you could just do the offering down at the bottom of the stairs and you don't have to do, and I'm looking around like this woman, like this poor woman, like she had to do all that, but she's doing all this. And it was like in that moment as if, like I just feel so out of place. And in that moment, it was as if God just like spoke to me there and said, Brian, what you're feeling right now is how so many people feel when they walk into a church for the first time. That it just feels out of place. It feels odd. You don't really know all the things that are going on. And I think, when we get really familiar with the church setting, and like we kind of know the routines, we kind of know like where I sit or where other people sit, or like, hey, when music is happening, oh yeah, we all just sing along. And so often what happens is like we can forget what it's like to walk into a space like this for the first time and experience worship in a space like this for the first time. Because like to just pull yourself back for a minute, like if you experience worship like this for the first time, it's weird. Like, it's just weird. People are standing, they're singing, their hands are up, sometimes they're kneeling. You don't see that anywhere. It's a bizarre encounter. But when you can understand the context of worship, why does worship, like, why worship? What is it? How are we doing? And when you can start to understand that worship is oftentimes like an outward expression of something that's going on the inside, right? when we can start to understand a little bit of what worship is, it starts to become this beautiful thing that actually can begin to resonate into like the depths of our soul. And that as we begin to practice it and participate in it, that when worship starts to actually sink down deep, and we start to understand what it is, it moves beyond a Sunday morning ritual and actually can become this moment-by-moment connection with the God who loves you in every minute, in every context of every day. And that's what we're talking about here. That's what worship is meant to be, that when we choose to follow Jesus, worship isn't just the hour that we gather on a Sunday morning. Worship is meant to be this thing that we experience at all times, that we can have an encounter, a connection with the Lord, with Jesus in every moment of every day. And so I want to talk about different ways that we can express worship, our worship, what's going on the inside, how we can express that outward. And here's the deal. When it comes to how we express worship, there's like literally millions of ways that we can express worship to God. When you look in the Bible, when you look throughout the Bible, there are all kinds of ways that people express their worship to God. And each of them comes with this beautiful context and why we do it. And so what I wanted to do this morning is I wanted to simply share just 5 different expressions of worship. Right? I want today to be, I'll be just upfront with you. This is not going to be like, let's go super deep into a particular scripture and the particular words, and that's not what this morning is going to be. This morning is going to be really practical. Like over-the-top practical is what this morning is going to be, because I want to help give you tools, not just to understand why people express worship in certain ways, but also give you an invitation to maybe that's a new way for you to express worship as well, a new way for you to connect with Jesus yourself. So I want to just give us five expressions of worship and give you the invitation to, hey, if something resonates with you, if you feel like maybe that's something the Lord's speaking to you, practice that and see what he does with that. So let's jump in. Again, just 5 expressions of worship is what we're going to talk about this morning. The first expression, and each of these, we experience these on an average Sunday morning. On a typical Sunday morning here at Bridgewood, you'll experience all of these, okay? So the first one is just simply standing. You know, just standing can be an act of worship. In Psalm 33:8, the invitation, it says, "Let the whole world fear the Lord, and let everyone stand in awe of him." Standing can be an act of worship. Now, in everyday life, like outside the context of a church, when do we stand, right? Like there's oftentimes like an invitation to stand for the national anthem, right? Hey, let's all rise, I'll stand for the national anthem, right? Or if you've ever been in a courtroom, right? I'll stand for the honorable judge so-and-so, right? It's this invitation to stand. Why? Because it's a sign of respect, right? It's a sign of awe, or a sign of honoring the person or the place or the thing that's in front of you. And a similar thing happens with how we worship God, right? If you come in on a Sunday morning, if you're on time, just kidding. Just kidding. No, but there's almost always an invitation, right? Hey, let's stand together and worship. There's almost always that invitation to stand together. It's an invitation to posture ourselves in respect, in awe, to be ready to receive what the Lord might have for us in any given morning. And we can do this in everyday life, outside of the context of church. A number of weeks ago, my family and I, we were camping up north along the North Shore. And we're out there, we're hiking, and there's one particular place where on Lake Superior, and there's all these just massive rocks. And so we're hiking on all these rocks, just kind of jumping from place to place, and I'm like the nervous parent, like, okay, don't fall in, don't fall in, don't fall in, don't fall in. But we're jumping from rock to rock, and there's this one particular place where the waves, these massive waves in Lake Superior, would crash up against these massive rocks, and you would have this just boosh of water that just explodes in front of you. And in this one particular place, you could get like the waves would just come boosh right here, and you could stand about this close. And you could just see this thing explode out in front of you. You'd get a little bit wet too. And so I went to go test it out, and I was like, oh, but it happened. And I was like, okay, boys, my kids, come stand up here. And then my wife stands. And I remember just stepping back and watching them and just seeing this boosh out in front of me. And it was like one of those moments where you can't just sit down at a moment like that. Like, that's not a moment you just go like, oh, cool, and you keep on walking. Like, you can't help but just stand in awe of like this massive, endless lake and these massive waves crashing against these hard rocks and this incredible explosion, and yet it's just this beautiful moment where you just go, wow, God. Have you ever experienced that looking out at a beautiful sunset? Right? If you've ever been to the Grand Canyon and you just look at these like incredible moments, it's this expression of worship where you stand not just out of respect, but in awe of who God is. It's just a moment of recognizing, God, I'm so in awe of you in here, and this is the only way I can bring that out of me. It's just, wow. Standing as an expression of worship. Let's go on to the second one. The second expression I want to talk about this morning is simply music and singing. Right? Hey, right after the invitation, hey, let's stand together and sing, right? And then we sing songs together. In Psalm 47, verse 6, it says, sing praises to God. Sing praises. Sing praises to our King. Sing praises. Do you get the big idea here? Yeah, sing praises, right? Singing, music, dancing, even like clapping and cheering. Like, these are all expressions of worship. Now, again, let's get outside the context of a church for a minute and just think, look, in our everyday life, like, when do we experience these? How about at a wedding? At every wedding, there's music that's played. There's a reception afterward. There's a big dance party that happens. People dance, and they celebrate together. They celebrate the couple, this moment of two people coming together, right? Maybe you go out for karaoke nights, and you sing, Can't Stop Believing, or what? Like, Don't Stop Believing. You sing the songs, and it's so embarrassing, but it's so much fun. You're just there in the moment with your friends, right? And what are you doing? You're singing because you just want to create a memory. You want to create a moment of having fun with people. It's like a celebration together. There's other times that we sing too, right? Or even like just clapping and cheering. You've ever been to like a Vikings game or a Twins game, right? And hey, your team scores a run, your team is so far behind, but you're Minnesota fans, so you can't help but still cheer them on, right? It's so. But what are you doing, right? You clap, you cheer, you sing the songs, you do the chants because you're rooting on the player or the team that's in front of you, right? You want to see them succeed. You're celebrating a victory. Or how about another way that we say it? Anybody else, like when you're probably alone in the car, belt out really sad songs? Anyone do that? It's the best. It's the best. Right? You get those sad songs, and you're like, yeah, and the person next to you is looking at you, but you don't care. Like, it's this incredible moment where you like, but what is that? Like, what is it about those moments? You sing those songs because like the words or the melody, there's something about it that just resonates in like the hurt that you're feeling, or the anger, or the sadness that you're feeling, or maybe you're doing it. I mean, for me, sometimes it's just like, man, I just want to feel something, and so you belt it out, right? Music, singing, dancing, there's something that music does in the human heart that nothing else on the planet quite does. You ever felt that? There's something about music that brings your guard down, that allows you to hear things differently or receive things differently, to be in a moment differently than in just even a normal conversation. That music has this way of moving the human heart. And oftentimes what can happen is outside of Sunday morning, right, we can have these moments of just listening to music or hearing something sung or a moment of just needing to celebrate because of what God is doing in here. And it's one of the best ways to bring it out. Sometimes you don't have the words to fully communicate what's happening on the inside, and music can sometimes bring that out of you. I shared this with you a number of weeks ago. There's a particular song that the Lord's been using in my life to just like heal my heart, heal my soul, and it's these specific lyrics, right? I've still got joy in chaos. I've got peace that makes no sense. I can't tell you the number of times I've just sung that to myself over and over and over. It's like everything out here can be absolute chaos, but Lord, I don't know how you're doing it or why you're doing it, but gosh, I've got so much joy in here. I've got so much peace in here. And it's these beautiful words that I could have never thought of myself, but they so perfectly help me express what's going on the inside. And so I sing it out as an expression of worship. saying, all right, God, I've still got peace. I've still got joy. Life is chaos, but you still got this. Thank you. Music, singing, dancing, cheering on can be an expression of worship, something that you practice in every day of your life. Let's go to number three. Number three, a third expression of worship can be talking and listening. You know, talking and listening can be an expression of worship. Let me check this out. In Psalm 34, verses 1 and 3, it says, I will praise the Lord at all times. I will constantly speak his praises. Come, let us tell of the Lord's greatness. Let us exalt his name together. I mean, think about this in just like person-to-person relationships, right? Like, how do we build relationship with other people, right? Well, we introduce ourselves, we meet them, we say hi to them, right? We share stories, we ask questions, that we just begin a conversation, right? Talking and listening is how we build relationship with people, and the same thing is true with God, is we talk to him and listen to him, and yet, in my experience, and maybe this sits with you too, in my experience, this can be perhaps one of the most difficult roadblocks to our faith in Jesus, to having a relationship with God, is talking and listening. I mean, I'll speak for myself here, but maybe this is true for you too. You ever find yourself like, hey, I'm going to pray, but my prayers just become, hey, God, I want this. Hey, God, I need this. Hey, God, would you just do this for me? And it's all about me, right? It's just, I'll talk to God, but it's just about what I want, right? It's just about what I need in that moment. And I forget to listen. I forget to just tell him about my day. He wants to know that too, but I make it about me. Or how about for me, like reading my Bible sometimes. Sometimes I'll crack open my Bible and I'm like, all right, well, I have to do it because, you know, a good Christian, you got to read your Bible every day, right? And so I'll read my Bible every day and I'll just check it off the list. It's like this felt obligation that I have. Or I'll open up my Bible because, well, maybe I'll learn something new. Maybe I can have a new little thing that I can get in the back of my mind for, you know, a Bible trivia night, right? So, hey, then I learn this new cool thing. And it's just about me and what I can learn, or about checking something off a list, and not about, okay, Lord, what do you want to say to me here? Not actually connecting with the God that it's about, right? How about when someone's giving a sermon? You ever have this happen? And I'll give you a slide today because, hello, I do this too, right? You listen and you just kind of critique like, oh, I can't believe they said that way. I would have said it this way, right? Oh, they didn't say it perfectly, right? So, that didn't come off right. Or how about this one, right? You're listening to this and you go, man, I hope my wife is listening to this. Oh, you know what? That person really needs to hear this. Never have that? You see, for me, I'll get in these moments where it's like, I know that talking and listening is how you build a relationship, but what ends up happening is in these ways that we can express worship to God by simply talking and listening to him, I make it all about me, right? What I can get, what God can do for me, right? And what I've learned over time is that, you know, all of these things, they're designed to help us have a two-way relationship, a two-way conversation, right? That's how you build a relationship. You don't build a relationship just by talking at someone all the time. You got to pause and you got to listen. You got to ask questions and invite answers, right? And so what I've learned is, you know, from just help and wisdom from some trusted friends and people in my life, I've learned that, hey, in prayer, if I ever find myself stuck in I just can't have that two-way conversation with God, I'll get up and I'll move around. Like, for whatever reason, when I can stand and like mow the lawn, or when I can go do yard work, or just go on a walk, for me, I have the best conversations with God when I'm actually moving and doing something, even just driving my car. It's helpful for me. Or even like in reading my Bible, one of the things that I started doing about a year ago today was I started doing a gratitude journal. And like when I say that, it's always like, wow, you do a whole journal? No, like that's not what this is. It's literally like a word. That's it. It's like I wake up, I've got a thing, I'm like, okay, what's a thing that I'm grateful for? And I write it down and I move on. But here's like the one rule that I have with that, is that it's got to be something that I am genuinely grateful for. And it can be something kind of silly as like, I'm grateful that I have slippers this morning. Like, it doesn't have to be deep. But what I've learned is that if I can pause and just be grateful for something before I jump into reading my Bible, it helps me connect my heart to the moment. It helps me connect with, okay, Lord, all right, what do you want to say to me today? It's helpful for me. It helps me get out of the mindset of just, check it off the list, but actually engage with what the Lord is saying to me there. Right? There's different ways that we can actually engage in a conversation with the Lord. That talking and listening is an expression of worship. It's a way of bringing yourself, laying down, right, offering yourself, sacrificing of yourself and saying, okay, Lord, here's where I'm at right now. What do you got for me? Talking and listening is an expression of worship. The fourth one that I want to talk about is lifting hands. Lifting hands. Again, this is one of those like, hey, when I was new to church, like when I started coming to church and I saw people doing this was weird to me. This is so weird to me. I didn't understand it. I didn't get it. But it's an expression of worship, right? Psalm 63:4. It says, I will praise you as long as I live, lifting up my hands to you in prayer. I was thinking about this, again, stepping outside the church world, where do we see people lifting up their hands? And there's three places in particular that I came to mind. One, Brendan shared a number of weeks ago, but it was this idea that, hey, we see that all the time, right? A criminal gets stopped by a police officer, right? Hey, put your hands up, right? And it's an act of surrender, right? It's me surrendering myself to you. I remembered another time of, like, when my kids were really little, right? And they just wanted to be carried, right? Pick me up, right? Like a little kid just wanting to be carried by their parents. And then the other place, on a roller coaster, obviously, right? Yeah! Right? Why do we lift up our hands? It can be for so many reasons. And I was thinking about this, like, okay, when you step into a space like this on Sunday morning, this is just practice for what we do in our everyday life, right? You can come into space, and sometimes, I'm lifting up my hands just as a surrender. God, listen, I know my hurts. I know my sin. I know my junk. I know how I've hurt people, and I know the hurts that I carry. And God, I'm done. I surrender it. Lord, take it. It's yours. Whatever you need to do, it's yours. Right? And sometimes like a little kid coming to their parents, it's like, God, I just want to be close to you. God, today I just need a hug. Honestly, sometimes it's like, God, my legs are tired. Carry me, right? My soul is tired. God, carry me for a bit. I need you. I just want to be close to you. And other times, it's just like, yeah! Woo! We're on the roller coaster. Here we go. And I can't help but just lift my hands in joy of like, God, I don't understand this. I don't know why this is what's happening in my life or what, but God, I'm along for the ride. Let's go. Let's do it. For me, one of the ways that I've realized I just impulsively lift up my hands is when I haven't seen somebody in a really long time, and it's somebody that I'm actually excited to see, right? I see them and I go, hey! And I can't help but just do it. It just comes out of me. Like, for me, it's just this natural expression of being excited to see somebody. One of the things I've been practicing early in the morning, when you wake up and you kind of do the morning stretch, what I'll do is I'll just leave my hands up for just half a second longer and put them down. And it's like this, just half a second prayer of saying, oh, God, I'm tired this morning, right? Oh, God, thank you, right? Oh, all right, God, what do you got for me today? And it's just this simple way of allowing God to have access to me. All right, God, here's where I'm at right now to start my day. This morning I woke up and I went, I don't want to do today. Little insight to how I'm feeling today. But that's how it is, and it just begins this conversation with God. Like lifting up your hands, it can be a simple expression, a simple invitation to say, all right, God, you got access. Whatever you need to do. Right? It's an expression of worship. The last expression of worship I just want to invite us into is kneeling and bowing. Kneeling and bowing, I'll be honest with you, for me, it's been a real long time since I've engaged in this. But on a Sunday morning, we'll see this sometimes, right? People will kneel down. Maybe you've knelt down, you've bowed, right? Oftentimes, you kneel down and you see somebody put their face down like this. They bow, right? Kneeling and bowing can be an expression of worship. In Psalm 95:6, it says, "Come, let us worship and bow down." Right? Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker. Kneeling and bowing. Have you ever heard the saying, right? Humility is not about thinking less of yourself. It's just thinking about yourself less. Right? That's what kneeling and bowing is about. It's this expression of humility. My kids just started Taekwondo a couple weeks ago, and they're officially third-degree white belts. What up? Yeah, so that's exciting. But they started Taekwondo, and they went and Master Kim, their teacher, their instructor, the first thing he taught them, he was like, hey guys, welcome to the class. The first thing he taught them was the importance of bowing. In Taekwondo, when you enter the gym for the first time, you bow to the flag, you bow to the master's office, you bow to the master, you bow to the instructors, you bow to each other, you bow before you go onto the mat. What he was teaching them was that bowing is such an important practice in Taekwondo, because what bowing is it's this expression, this acknowledgement that there is something or someone greater than you, someone that's more advanced than you, right? You walk in and you bow to the master because they're higher than you are. They're better at this than you are. They're more advanced than you are. And when we bow, when we kneel, it's not like this, oh, woe is me, I'm scum, I'm just the scum of the earth, I'm just a worm. It's not that, right? And like that's insulting, right? You're not that. You're so much more than that. Like, you're created in God's image. Are you kidding me? Right? It's not this making oh, woe is me. It's this simple acknowledgement that's like, listen, I'm part of something bigger. Like, there is something greater than I am here. And it's this simple act of physically lowering yourself, saying less of me and more of you. Right? That's what bowing and kneeling can be in worship. It's just the simple way to posture your body to say, all right, God, maybe I'm feeling really arrogant, maybe I'm feeling really prideful, or maybe I just want to acknowledge, God, your goodness and your bigness. So you know what? Less of me and more of you. But you know what the most beautiful thing about my kids bowing to the master in Taekwondo is that the master bows back. They didn't deserve that. There's nothing that they've done to earn the master bowing back to them. And yet, in this simple act, the master acknowledges their worth and their value too. You see, that's what worship is. That's what happens in worship. We don't come to worship to get, it's all about me. We come to worship to give, to say, all right, God, here's me, just as I am. Good, bad, or otherwise, here's me. And Jesus takes that. He receives our offering. He receives our sacrifice of us. And he gives us his in return. That's the beauty of worship. That we bring all of ourselves, as much of ourselves as we can in any given moment, and say, all right, God, you got access. Here's me. And Jesus receives that and says, and here's me too. This morning, we get to take communion together. And communion is this beautiful expression of worship that we get to participate together in. That in communion, what we do is we come and we receive the bread, we receive the wine or the grape juice, right, as an expression of Jesus' blood and body. And what do? We come to the table, we come to communion, and we say, all right, God, here's all of me. Here's my sin. Here's what I don't like about me. Here's the ways that I've hurt myself, I've hurt others. And I lay it down. And at the same time, Lord, here's all of my joy. Here's my victories. Here's the things I want to celebrate with you, and I lay those down too. And when we surrender those, Jesus meets us in that moment and says, and here's all of me too. All of your sin, all of the things that you don't like. Listen, all that is forgiven. It's already forgiven. Receive it. And we say, okay, but Lord, here's all my joy. Here's all my victories. And he goes, great. And you have new life. You have a new identity. Now live in it. Keep living in it. You got this. And it's like Jesus cheers us right back on. So this morning, as we prepare to receive communion together, I want to extend a simple invitation this morning to say, what of you are you ready to surrender and give access to Jesus today? You know, for some of you, maybe you've never done this ever before. You've never given Jesus access to you. And this morning, maybe it's the first time in your whole life that you're going to say, Jesus, I'm giving you access. I give you my life. I give you as much of me as I can. Maybe for others of you, You're at a place where you're like, all right, I need to re-surrender a piece of me to Jesus. So Lord, here's my addiction. Here's my hurt. Here's my grief. Lord, here's my joy. And it's time to surrender, to offer that to Jesus too. And the beautiful thing is that no matter what you bring to Jesus, he meets you in that moment and gives you all of him right back. So this morning, that's the invitation. Would you bring yourself to communion? Offering all of you, as much of you as possible, to Jesus. And say, Jesus, whatever you need to do, it's yours. Let me say a prayer for us. As we do, I want to remind you, as Grant shared this morning, if you're new with us, when we receive communion together, you can come up as a family or as a group or maybe with complete strangers. And you can come to either of the tables on either side, and you give communion to each other, right? This is the body of Christ broken for you. This is the blood of Christ shed for you. And say a prayer over each other. If you're comfortable with praying with each other, we'd love for you to pray with one another. And then you can just go back around and return to your seats. But in that moment, would you meet with Jesus together? Lord, I thank you so much. I thank you that in the moments where I can't give you all of me, you still meet with me. You still receive everything that I can give, and you still give all of yourself to me. Jesus, I'm so thankful. I'm so grateful for you. This morning, Jesus, we come to you and we say, here's my life. You've got access. For some, it might be for the first time in a long time, Jesus, you have access again. For others of us, Lord, I'm bringing to you something maybe I haven't brought to you in a long time. But Jesus, this morning we give you access. We're listening. And we're asking the question, Jesus, what do you want to say? We're open. We're ready to receive whatever it is that you would like to give to us this morning. Lord, we love you, and we thank you that you meet us in every moment of every day. And would you be with us? Would you do that for us now? Jesus, in your name, amen.